So this little excursion is going to be about Andrew Yang's presidential policies. So Andrew Yang is a badass. Okay, so Andrew Yang is essentially an unknown whose main signature policy is universal basic income, and this is going to get rid of poverty, and this will help out with the economy. The universal basic income is incredible. So I'm going to start out with all the good things. There's a couple criticisms that I have of him, but for the most part, for being a newcomer, he's got a lot of incredibly progressive ideas. So Andrew Yang, he's in favor of the universal basic income, which is $1,000 per month for every U.S. citizen. He calls that the freedom dividend. And he's even going to give it to rich people because he says something about the true right of citizenship. This isn't just going to be a transfer from rich to poor, but everybody's going to get $1,000 a month. So the millionaires and billionaires are going to get $1,000 a month too. So, as long as it's fair and, I like that idea. I really like that idea. There's automation, there's outsourcing, manufacturing base is gone, so this will help reinvigorate the economy of America. Now, I'm going to just kind of read these list off, and talk about some of the issues, but I'm just going to go down the list, okay? So he's in favor of a Green New Deal. Andrew Yang is in favor of a Green New Deal. And he also favors a reduction in carbon emissions with an emphasis on climate engineering. He's pro-choice. He's going to nominate pro-choice judges. He's in favor of instant runoff voting. So he's pro-ranked choice voting. That's better than Mayor Pete. So instant runoff voting makes it fair for independents. Instant runoff voting. So Andrew Yang is pro-choice, pro-Green New Deal, pro-instant runoff voting, also called ranked choice voting. He's in favor of NATO. He wants to return the power to declare war to Congress, which is constitutional. He's in favor of the Dreamers. He's pro-Dreamer Act, so he's going to protect the Dreamers. He's in favor of universal health care. He believes in a mixture of government and private system. He wants to support regulating social media as a public utility. He wants to ban robocalls. He wants to legalize marijuana, and he wants to decriminalize opioids, including the heroin, for personal use, but he doesn't support legalizing or decriminalizing cocaine. So that's an interesting one. He's for legalizing heroin, but not cocaine. So, I'm against the war on drugs, so I'd be for legalizing all of it, but legalization of marijuana, legalizing heroin, but not cocaine. So he's more progressive than most. That you have Mayor Pete and Kamala just talking about legalizing marijuana, not legalizing anything else. So he's at least legalizing something else. So I don't exactly understand the distinction. Heroin's some pretty bad stuff. Cocaine's some pretty bad stuff. So I don't know why he's saying heroin is to be legalized, but cocaine is not. So for Baby Bush, that's not going to be good for Baby Bush. So he wants universal health care, single payer. He also wants to include free marriage counseling in single-payer health care. He's in favor of nuclear energy, like thorium-based nuclear power and generation for nuclear reactors. He wants a bunch more nuclear power plants in the United States. He says we need more investment, more adequate investment in patient care technology. There's a doctor shortage, and he says that it's not just, the healthcare industry, but he's saying that, what was he saying? He was actually saying that because people have to go to medical school and they have to be, careerists, they got to turn a life of medicine into a career, that's a reason why we have a doctor shortage. And so we need to invest in patient care technology, and then that would help out with, rudimentary stuff. He opposes circumcision, and he says that history will show that the anti-activist movement to have been right. So I guess the anti-activist movement is those who oppose circumcision, but he doesn't believe in banning circumcision. Now that's interesting. I remember being, when I was in my young prime, in my 20s, that at Xavier University there's a big ordeal about female circumcision. And here men and boys have been getting circumcised for how long? So, I'm rushing for these, stopping circumcision in Africa for these girls because how horrendous, how barbaric. Why would they circumcise women? And yet we've been circumcising the boys the whole time. And so, and what's the difference? Okay, so I was circumcised, and I'll have a kid that isn't circumcised. So that just means I need to learn how to, maintain a penis. I just want to maintain a penis. I don't want to. I just have to learn how to, wash a penis that is uncircumcised. I'll have to help my kid wash his penis the way that God intended for it to be. And the reason for female circumcision is the same reason for male circumcision, to have less nerve endings, to take the pleasure away from sex, so that way they will want sex less. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So it's interesting that he opposes it, so that's, a topic of conversation, but he's not going to pass a law to ban it, which would be the next obvious step. But I think actually by talking about it, that's the first step, right? Andrew Yang is also going to create a position for the Secretary of Cybersecurity. He's going to create a new category of residency that would allow undocumented migrants to gain citizenship after 18 years in the country. If you've been here for 18 years, I mean, that's a long time you've been in the shadows, so, I'd be okay with that. New technology to increase the security of the Mexico-United States border, as well as increase the financial support for the ports of entry. So he's in favor of border security, which is a good thing. He's going to pass a law criminalizing discrimination based upon sexual orientation or gender identity. So he will make sure you cannot discriminate against people because they're gay or because they're transgendered. He's going to lower the national voting age to 16 years of age. He wants to revitalize the EPA. He wants to create a global geoengineering institute to form intergovernment partnerships. He's in favor of a carbon tax. He's pro-Paris Climate Agreement. He's in favor of de-escalating training of firearm-toting law enforcement, which is obvious. He's going to hire a White House psychologist to focus on mental health issues, and then oppose the deregulation of Wall Street. So, we should regulate Wall Street. He doesn't say regulate Wall Street. He just says we shouldn't deregulate Wall Street. And then the White House psychologist, that's kind of like a philosopher. There's a nation, I want to say Norway or Sweden does it, where they hire a philosopher, a philosopher for the nation. And so that sort of, gets people thinking about what's the point of life, what are we doing here? It kind of puts people on one. You have the official philosopher. So do you agree with the official philosophy of the state, or do you have something else? So I think that would be good to get us on sort of the same page. So those are all the issues of Andrew Yang's that I really liked. He's got a ton of great progressive ideas. He's in favor of universal health care. He's in favor of instant runoff voting. He's in favor of the Green New Deal. And so, those are very, very progressive issues. He's also talking about nuclear power. And I know we're supposed to be scared of nuclear power, but since we, were the ones that pioneered the bomb, we could use nuclear power to, use it for energy. And the only problem with nuclear power is whenever it becomes a 3-mile island or a Chernobyl. So, if we can stop the meltdowns, then that would be perfect. Nuclear power would be perfect. So, I'm not, and actually on SimCity, nuclear power, there's waste and, it can have a meltdown. Coal and oil power, those are dirty. These are all dirty fuels. And so ultimately, solar and wind power is the direction to make it clean, to have a nice clean energy system. So those are the things that I like about Andrew Yang. So a lot of great things, when it comes to the universal basic income. And, so the Green New Deal, right, that was pretty controversial. Instant runoff voting, you don't hear Republicans or Democrats talk about that. And some of the other things that he's talking about, too. Legalizing heroin. He's going to legalize heroin and some other things. So the criticisms that I have, it's just really a couple he's bad on guns, which all Democrats are bad on guns. Most of the Democrats are bad on guns. He's bad on Palestine. They said, is Israel upholding, the human rights? And he was like, well, of course they are. I mean, what are you talking about? He played real stupid, as if, why would anybody suggest that Israel doesn't have a good human rights record? Well, he's really bad on Palestine. He has absolutely no foreign policy at all. He didn't say anything about Syria or Venezuela or the 20 Shadow Wars or what his war policy is. For all these candidates, I want to know specifically what their war policy. What is your war policy? Tell me specifically. When will you declare war? If we're attacked, of course you're going to declare war. But what else? I think to stop slavery, to stop genocide, I think those would be, to stop colonialism, to stop oppression, to stop one sovereign nation from invading another sovereign nation. These are all good instances of war, of when you need it, and it's much more restrictive than what we have now. Now it seems like we're just going to war for any reason that the president thinks that we should go to war, whether it's good for the country or not. So he has no foreign policy. He's really bad on Palestine, and he also said he's for a human-centered capitalism. So is that him running away from socialism? When it comes to, having a balance in America, people are just so damn one-sided. It's like Vietnam. You just want to win, which means what? Kill all Vietnamese people? How's that a victory? And for the Republicans, it's like they don't even look at the issues. They just say, I'm going to vote for my guy. And so it's like the Hillary Clinton assholes and the Republicans, they just want their guy to win, their person on their team to win. Policies be damned. No, the policies dictate who I vote. If a Republican came up with a bunch of progressive ideas, you're damn right I would vote for the Republican. I vote for the most progressive. So human-centered capitalism, I'm a socialist capitalist. I'm a liberal conservative. I have a balance. Some things need to be changed. Some things need to stay the same. Sometimes you got to think with your head. Sometimes you got to think with your heart. And sometimes you got to think with both, right? Sometimes you need both. So I think that, you need your liberals and you need your conservatives. And to just say, I don't even think conservatives know what they believe. They just go along with the Republican Party and Fox News. So if Fox News is saying it, then clearly that's the direction they're going to go. So they don't even think for themselves. I would love to hear their definition of conservative. What does it mean to be a conservative? To be a dick? To not give a shit about people? To be anti-life? That whole pro-life is such bullshit. When it comes to Palestine, Republicans are pro-life. When it comes to universal health care, Republicans are pro-life. When it comes to foreign policy, Republicans could care less that, they couldn't name the 7 countries that were bombing. They couldn't name the 20 Shadow Wars. They couldn't name them. But, as long as we're, fighting, then you're on my country, right or wrong? No, not at all. It's patriotic to be for righteousness. So I'm an extremist. I'm a radical for love, for justice, for righteousness, and I'm opposed to evil, murder, rape, stealing, violence. So it's not about, being an extremist or being a radical. It's being what kind of extremist, what kind of radical, what kind of conservative. What are you conserving? Are you conserving the environment? No, you're against the EPA. Are you conserving science? No, you're against science. What the hell are you conserving? So I don't think they actually have a definition for, being conservative, and I don't think they have an overall philosophy. They're just going along with the flow. And I guess that's, the peasants. That's probably the supporters of a lot of people. But, yeah, have some balance, America. Jesus, get some balance. Human-centered capitalism. Human-centered capitalism. Why don't you just be a capitalist socialist, okay? Human-centered. You're going to make capitalism give a damn? So he's bad on Palestine. He has no foreign policy. Andrew Yang also has a couple interesting ideas. He's opposed to raising the minimum wage. I could go either way on minimum wage. The minimum wage in Colorado is $10 an hour, and for right now, I'm okay with that. We do need to get paid more, and I think the balance essentially is good economic policy versus having a livable wage. So a job should be able to provide a livable wage. If it doesn't, then that job should be illegal. And the minimum wage, it's bad economics, right? If you put a floor, if you put a ceiling, then the free market isn't doing their thing. So I just have a balance between having a living wage, the human right aspect of it, and then, good economics, which is essentially not to have a minimum wage. You have no floor, you have no ceiling, whatever you could get away with. If you could pay somebody $3 an hour to wash trucks, well then, you're smart capitalist, you're a genius. There's a couple ideas I wasn't really sure of. I'm just going to list them, and then you can determine what you think about it on yourself, on your own accord. So Andrew Yang believes in a value-added tax. That's how he's going to pay for the universal basic income, is getting a value-added tax. He says that American technology companies are avoiding taxes because of this value-added tax, or because, for whatever reason, but a value-added tax would actually help get them to pay their taxes. So the technology companies are avoiding their taxes, and a value-added tax would make sure they would get, they would pay their fair share too. Value-added tax. He needs to pay for universal basic income some way, somehow. There's several ways. Tax the rich, tax Wall Street, cut out, the $4 billion we support Israel with, use that money. So value-added tax, I don't like the concept of taxing growth, taxing, expansion, taxing the profits. I feel like by taxing growth, aren't you essentially disincentivizing them from growing? I want them to grow, so I want to tax them if they don't grow, if they don't, invest in their company and hire more people. We want more jobs, so create more jobs, and so I'm not for sure about the value-added tax. Andrew Yang prefers labor force participation rate to the unemployment rate. There are problems with the unemployment rate. I'm not for sure about the labor force participation rates. I think it's the available labor force and if they're participating. So he likes it better than the unemployment rate. I'm not for sure if it's better. There's problems with the unemployment rate, that's for sure. He also believes that the median income and life expectancy are more accurate at measuring the health of the economy than the GDP. So that's interesting. The GDP is how, essentially, the economy, if we, create a bunch of stuff, we'll all be rich and happy. That's very simplistic, and it's not entirely accurate. Median income, well, why not the average income? And what about poverty? And what about homelessness? I think that actually poverty is the best indication of the economy, because how many people are doing well and how many people are being left behind. So this economy is leaving people behind, and that's fine and dandy with the people, that's got money. So median, then life expectancy. What does life expectancy have to do with the economy? I guess if there's lots of people having long lives, that's the life expectancy is an indicator for life expectancy, not really the economy, but I guess a strong economy. That's a caring economy that is compassionate. So life expectancy, I don't know. I'm not for sure if that's better than the GDP. I measure the economy by several different indications. The GDP is one, unemployment is another. And then there's a U6 unemployment rate. So there's different unemployment rates, but I believe in the U6 unemployment rate. And so I look at the GDP, I look at the national debt. We got $20 trillion in debt. So the GDP, poverty, median income, life expectancy, I guess I take a multitude of, indicators, a multitude of numbers to understand the overall economy and how well the economy is actually doing. So I can't say that it's more accurate. Median income, yes. Life expectancy, I'm not for sure if that's more accurate than the GDP. I think GDP is just a part of the economy. Another one of Yang's ideas, a new type of credit system designed to incentivize traditionally unpaid caregiving contributions. So that's good to, give incentives for unpaid caregiving contributions, unpaid care. So that's what, motherhood or babysitting or what? And what's the credit system? So that just seems pretty complicated. He'll have to unpack that one for me in one of his, incredible speeches. He's going to make tax day a national holiday. Tax day. Yay, it's tax day, everybody. It's tax day. It's a holiday. And I haven't heard him talk about turning Election Day into a holiday. I've heard that several times. The only things with democracy was that he's going to lower the national voting age to 16. It says on his webpage that he's got 100 policy statements, so he's got, statements on lots of different issues. Now, the last two things, he's going to create a Department of the Attention Economy. A Department of the Attention Economy that would focus on regulating the addictive nature of social media. What? He's going to create an entire new department, right? So we got the Homeland Security, and we got the Education, Department of Education, and the FBI, and the CIA, and the Department of Attention Economy, because people look at Facebook too much. Maybe we should do something about the addictive nature of social media, but an entire new department. And then he's going to say he's going to increase the salaries of federal regulators, but limit their private work after they leave public service. He says that's going to root out corruption. So by paying the feds more money, and then when they get out of public service, then they can't. There's only so many things that they can do with their private life. I mean, that's regulating the shit out of the feds. Increasing their salaries. I'm not for sure what the feds do for me. I'm not sure what this government does for me, to be honest with you. Maybe I'm just not, there's been programs out there that I didn't know about until it was too late, so perhaps I don't know exactly what. There's a coordination failure between the government and the people. What do they actually provide, and do I need to sign up? Do I need to participate? What am I supposed to do? So, yeah, there's some interesting, I'm not for sure about those ideas. Minimum wage, I'm neutral, but he's got a lot of great ideas, right? He wants to compare it to Donald Trump. He wants to get back into the Paris Climate Agreement, which is, basically a gentleman's agreement that we're going to do something about emissions. And the entire world was, convened for that. So that's ridiculous. It's such a dumb thing to exit out of. It's not like we were, bound. It was, we were going to, it's self-government, self-regulating. So essentially, we were just going to regulate ourselves to make sure we have a more healthy environment and do better with emissions. So that's a good thing, That's not saying that, you didn't do it, so it's illegal. No, it's just saying we're a good faith effort to fight global warming. Global warming doesn't really move me that much, but it is an issue that needs to be addressed. I don't think we need to take a huge bit of economy to do that. I think we just really need to talk to the American people. If global warming, people are, it's a myth. So you're saying humans don't affect the environment of the earth? Of course humans affect the environment of the earth. So we could do things. We could recycle. We could get into solar power. There's lots of things that we could do. So I think Obama said change light bulbs, so have lower wattage light bulbs. And people mocked him for that, but that's the first route that you would go. Try to encourage the American people to just act more environmentally friendly on their own accord. So when it comes to, he wants to lower the national voting age to 16, just a lot of good ideas, So he wants to, pass a law criminalizing discrimination against gay folks and transgendered folks. He wants to revitalize the EPA, the pro-carbon tax. I put that as a good thing, but I'm not actually for sure about a pro-carbon tax. People have said carbon tax and reimburse. So they're going to tax you for the carbon, and then they're going to give you a check to pay you back or something. I'm not for sure. So we're not making any money. So what's the carbon tax going to do if you're just getting the money back? And I don't really like taxes, so carbon tax. And then another thing with the emission standards, that hits the poor people the hardest. Right, so the poor people have to go through all the same emission standards that everybody else has to. Meanwhile, right, you're barely making ends meet. So shit, this is just another thing you got to pay for. So I'm gonna put pro-carbon tax under neutral until I find out a little bit more information about that. But Andrew Yang is still impressive. I don't like that his foreign policy is so. He has no foreign policy, and then what he said about Palestine was awful. So, and then him being a human-centered capitalist, so that means he's not a socialist capitalist, right? He doesn't have a balance. He's not saying, we need to use our brain and our heart for, anyways. On guns, I'm going to end it off on guns, even though progressives disagree. A lot of progressives, I won't say progressives, I'll say Hillary Clinton and Rachel Maddow and then the information media highway. So it's crazy to me, after school shootings, there's always a conversation about getting rid of guns, but there's never any conversation about ending corporal punishment for children. In fact, it's the opposite. We need more discipline. And so the solution to children who have been traumatized by violence and engaged in violent activities is even more violence. So just keep piling the violence on top of it, just more violence and never stop with the violence. That's crazy. So nobody's talking about stopping corporal punishment, stop violence against innocent children. You're not allowed to smack an adult, right? If you don't like what they say, you smack an adult. Well, that's an assault and you'll go to jail. But a child, you can hit them all day long. As long as you don't leave a mark, it's totally fine. They're innocent. They're your own progeny. They're going to love abusers for the rest of their life. You are fucking up their lives. And you don't give a shit because you're some backwards, dumb fucking asshole, religious fuck that wants your kids to believe the same dumb fucking backwards ass shit you believe. And then there's Stockholm Syndrome. So the children of battered, homes, they will reject those who truly love them and go chase those who abuse them. So we're not going to get rid of violence upon children. We're going to add more violence on children, and that's going to stop the violence problem. No, it's not going to stop the violence problem. And then a lot of the gun measures, so there's a shooting in Colorado, they had clean records. So background check wouldn't have done anything, and then the gun was bought legally in the household. So the bump stocks and the assault, weapons, it was like a rifle or something. So that means the laws that they're suggesting actually doesn't even fit, the crime. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. And it's a collective punishment. And it's our Second Amendment freedom. You tell me I don't have a right to defend myself, and then we only have 50 freedoms. You're going to get rid of the second freedom? And the whole point of the Second Amendment is to fight tyranny. A government cannot oppress an armed population. So that's, for tyranny. So what worries me about Andrew Yang's gun policies, he's going to have a stringent 3-tiered licensing system for gun ownership. So is Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete is going to have a national licensing system. So they're coming after your guns. They're going to mark your guns down on a big national database, and you're only going to allow to have a little pistol, a little shotgun, while they have the tanks and the nukes and the... Who's got the tanks and the nukes? There was a nun that walked right up on the nuclear facility. The G4S, people aren't doing a good job, so I am very concerned about who has the guns in our society. Who are we allowing to have the guns? So if you're able to get in a position, of a military position, then you have access to all those, and that's going to stop the crime? I mean, I'm not for sure. So I don't think it's been well thought out at all. I will address guns when you address a dozen other progressive issues. Poverty, totalitarian schools. There's a lot of, there's cops murdering, getting away with it, the judicial branch that's not accessible to regular folks. So there's a lot of issues. So there's self-defense, freedom, and there's lots of other issues that take higher priority. You want to take away the guns of everybody, but you're going to let the kids still get beat up, so they're still going to get traumatized, and then they're going to find a gun, and a gun that's legal. So what are you doing? You didn't do nothing. He's going to restrict violent people, domestic abusers, and crazy people from getting guns. Those are kind of laws that are already on the books. He's going to grandfather current gun owners in. So grandfather you in, right? You own a gun, then you can keep your guns. So he's the opposite of the buyback people. But he did say something. He's in favor of a federal buyback program, which I kind of like the federal buyback program because it's for choice, right? So if you want to sell your guns, the feds will buy it. It's not like a mandated, requirement, just if you want to sell it back and, just on your own good graces. So I'm not sure how successful that will be, but I like choice, right? So ultimately, if the government wants to, offer whatever, how much money to buy guns back, he's also, He's gonna offer a one-time good gun owner tax credit. He's anti-bump stock suppressors, incendiary and explosive ammunition, and grenade launcher attachments. Just the attachments. So great. Grenade launchers are fine. And then, what about Palestine? Jesus Christ, if Palestine didn't understand how power works, power comes out of a barrel of a gun. So if Palestine was, acting like Andrew Yang, they wouldn't be able to defend themselves.